The market hall smelled of smoke, metal, and despair. Hundreds of eyes stared at the raised platform where the newest group of captives stood under the harsh glow of alien lamps. The hall was a massive structure built from black stone, and the ceiling stretched so high that the air above disappeared into shadows. Every day, traders gathered here to bid on living beings, prisoners of war, debt slaves, or people taken from broken worlds. Among the line of captives stood a young alien woman. Her figure was thin, her posture tired, yet her eyes still carried a quiet spark. She was dressed in rags that hung loosely from her shoulders, and her wrists bore the faint marks of restraints that had been recently removed. The auctioneer, a tall alien with scaled skin and sharp teeth, smirked as he gestured toward her. "Lot 7, he announced in a booming voice that echoed through the hall. "One female, from the ruins of the Zalari people. Useless in labor, without skills, and of no real value. Let us begin the bidding at 1 silver token." Laughter broke out among the crowd. Merchants leaned on their benches, chuckling at the thought of someone paying for what they believed to be nothing more than a weak creature. Many turned away, without interest, whispering that her people had been conquered and destroyed because they were too fragile, too naive to survive. The woman lowered her head, but not completely. She did not weep, nor did she beg. She stood quietly, enduring the shame of being called worthless, though deep inside she still remembered the proud traditions of her ancestors. From the back of the hall, a man stepped forward. He was human, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in worn travel gear. His hair was unkempt from weeks of journeying across star systems, and his eyes carried a mix of weariness and stubborn fire. His name was Daniel Hayes, an explorer, trader, and sometimes a wanderer who never seemed to stay in one place for too long. Daniel watched the woman closely. Where others saw weakness, he saw something else. He noticed how she stood, not broken, but quietly defiant. He noticed how she did not shrink away from the jeering crowd, though her face was pale. Most of all, he noticed her eyes, silent, yet alive. The auctioneer slammed his staff on the ground impatiently. 1 silver token, no bids? She is hardly worth the breath I spend on her. Perhaps half a token, then. More laughter filled the air. Some traders shouted jokes, others made cruel comments. The woman's cheeks burned, but she did not cry. Daniel raised his hand. "I'll take her." The hall grew quiet for a moment. All eyes turned to the human who dared to speak. Then came another wave of laughter, louder than before. "Foolish human," one merchant sneered. "Always soft-hearted," another mocked. "Perhaps he likes collecting broken things," a third added. Daniel ignored them. He stepped forward, tossed a small coin toward the auctioneer, and said firmly, "She's mine now." The auctioneer caught the coin and grinned. "Sold for almost nothing. May she not burden you, human." Chains clinked as the guards pushed the woman off the platform. She stumbled but quickly regained her balance. When she was led to Daniel, she looked up at him for the first time. Her eyes were guarded, expecting cruelty, yet Daniel only gave a small nod. "Come with me," he said simply. Outside the market hall, the air was cooler. The city stretched wide, filled with lights, noise, and countless alien species walking the streets. Ships roared overhead, landing and leaving at the docking platforms. The woman walked behind Daniel, uncertain and tense. "You don't have to fear me," Daniel said without turning. His voice was calm, steady. "You're free now." She frowned, unsure if she understood correctly. Free? That word had lost its meaning long ago. To her, being sold always meant chains under a new master. Daniel stopped near a docking ramp that led to a small freighter. Its metal hull bore scratches and patches from old battles, yet it was well kept. A ship meant independence, and independence was something she had not felt in years. He gestured toward it. "This is my ship, you'll be safe here." The woman hesitated. "Why?" she asked softly, her voice hoarse from silence. "Why take me? I have no worth." Daniel looked at her, and for the first time, she saw no mockery in someone's eyes. Because you deserve better than this, he said. I don't believe anyone is worthless. For a moment her chest tightened. No one had spoken such words to her since her people's downfall. Inside the ship, Daniel offered her food and water. She ate slowly, almost afraid the kindness was a trick. He did not press her with questions, nor treat her as a possession. He simply gave her space, speaking only when necessary. That night, as the ship prepared to leave the alien city, the woman sat quietly near the window, watching the stars beyond the port. She could not remember the last time she had looked at them freely without fear. Her thoughts swirled with confusion. Why would a human, someone she had never met, choose to see value in her when her own kind had been discarded as worthless? As the engines roared and the ship lifted into the night sky, she realized her life had changed. She did not know where this path would lead, or if she could trust Daniel fully, but for the first time in years, she felt the smallest flicker of hope, and Daniel, watching her from the pilot's seat, thought quietly to himself, "The galaxy may not see her worth, but I do." The journey ahead was uncertain, yet one thing was clear: neither of them would be the same again. The freighter drifted through the dark stretch of space, its engines humming like a low song. Inside, silence filled the narrow halls. The woman sat on the small bench near the kitchen module, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She still could not understand why Daniel had taken her. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most were known as wanderers, traders, or fighters for hire. Yet this man had spent a coin on someone everyone else had dismissed as useless. She could not decide if he was foolish or different. Daniel appeared from the cockpit carrying 2 steaming mugs. He placed one in front of her. "It's warm broth," he explained. "Not much, but it helps." She hesitated. Old memories made her cautious. Kindness was often followed by cruelty. But the warmth in his voice made her take the cup. She sipped slowly, the simple flavor filling her with a comfort she had long forgotten. "You don't have to be afraid here," Daniel said. He leaned back in his chair, his tone calm. "No chains, no orders. You can speak freely." The woman looked at him. "But I have nothing," she whispered. "No skill, no wealth. Why would you waste your time on me?" Daniel studied her carefully. "I don't measure people by what they own," he replied. "I measure them by what they survive." Those words sank deep into her heart. She had survived capture, cruelty, and humiliation. Yet no one had ever called that strength. The days passed slowly as the freighter traveled through lonely systems. At first she remained quiet, speaking only when necessary. She watched Daniel as he worked on the ship, repairing panels, checking routes, and keeping the engine steady. He was patient, never rushing her, never demanding trust. One evening, while Daniel adjusted the navigation screen, she gathered courage to speak. "My name," she said softly, "is Lyra." Daniel turned, giving her a small smile. "Lyra," he repeated. "Good. A name should never be forgotten." For years, she had been called only by numbers or mocking titles. Hearing her real name, spoken again, felt like sunlight after endless night. Later, Daniel asked about her past. He did not push, only waited. And slowly, piece by piece, Lyra began to share. Her people, the Zalari, had once lived on green worlds filled with rivers and forests. They valued art, song, and peace. But when war reached them, they were unprepared. Stronger empires crushed, them claiming their lands and enslaving survivors. "I was taken when I was still young," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "They said we were weak. They said we had no purpose. Many of us were sold until no one cared for our price. Some were left to die." Daniel listened in silence, his jaw tightening. When she finished, he said only, "What they did was wrong. No one decides your worth but you." She looked at him with wide eyes. "But you don't understand. I truly have no skills. I can't fight. I can't trade. I can't even read half the machines they use here." Daniel gave a faint chuckle. Skills can be learned, strength can be built, but courage is already inside you. You survived when others tried to break you. That's not weakness, Lyra. She lowered her head, unsure how to answer. Yet deep inside, a spark of belief began to stir. One day, the ship docked at a trading station orbiting a barren moon. Daniel needed fuel and supplies. The station was crowded with merchants and travelers, their voices echoing through the wide, metallic corridors. Lyra followed closely behind him, her steps small. She was nervous. Crowds reminded her of auctions and chains. But Daniel walked calmly, checking prices, nodding politely to strangers. At one stall, a group of alien traders noticed Lyra. They laughed among themselves. "Is that not the worthless Zalari?" one sneered. "Did someone actually buy her?" Another mocked. "Humans truly are fools," a third added. Lyra froze, her chest tightening. Shame washed over her, old wounds reopening. She waited for Daniel to join their laughter or push her forward as proof of his bargain. Instead, Daniel placed his hand lightly on her shoulder. He faced the traders and said firmly, "She's with me, and she's worth more than all your empty words." The traders blinked in surprise, then muttered and turned away. Lyra stared at Daniel, stunned. No one had ever defended her like that. Back on the ship, she sat in silence, her thoughts swirling. Finally, she asked, "Why do you keep saying, 'I have worth'? You don't even know me." Daniel leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "I don't have to know everything about you," he said. "I only need to see the way you carry yourself. You've been through things no one should endure, yet you're still standing. That tells me enough." His words were simple, but they struck deep. For the first time, Lyra wondered if perhaps she was not as broken as she believed. That night, while Daniel slept, Lyra wandered through the ship's corridors. She paused at the storage bay where the stars shone through a small window. She whispered her people's old songs under her breath, words almost forgotten. To her surprise, Daniel's voice came softly from behind. "That's beautiful." "What does it mean?" She turned quickly, embarrassed. "It is an old Zalari hymn. It means, 'The river flows, though stones may try to stop it.'" Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Then you're the river, Lyra, and no stone has stopped you yet." Her heart ached at his kindness. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to see herself as he did. The next morning, alarms suddenly echoed through the ship. Daniel rushed to the cockpit, scanning the radar. "Pirates," he muttered. "They've locked onto us." Lyra's stomach dropped. Fear clawed at her chest. She had no weapon, no way to fight. She expected Daniel to regret ever taking her. But when the pirates' ship drew closer, Lyra felt something stir within her. The hum of their engines, the faint signals in the air. It was as if she could sense their movement before the radar even showed it. "Left," she blurted suddenly. "They're coming from the left side." Daniel spun the ship just in time, avoiding a blast that streaked past them. He glanced at her in shock. "How did you know that?" I don't know," she stammered. "I just felt it." He didn't. Question further. "Then keep feeling. Tell me what you sense." Guided by her strange instinct, Daniel dodged blast after blast, weaving through the black void. Finally, he fired back, striking the pirates' ship and forcing them to retreat. When silence returned, Daniel turned to Lyra, his eyes wide. "You saved us." Her hands trembled. I don't understand what happened." Daniel gave her a firm nod. "Then maybe you've been carrying more than you realize. Lyra, you're not worthless, you're extraordinary." For the first time in years, she smiled. A small, fragile smile, but real. That night, as the stars drifted past, Lyra sat quietly, thinking of all that had happened. The shame of the auction still haunted her, but Daniel's words echoed louder. She had worth. She had survived. And maybe, just maybe, she had something more to give than anyone had ever believed. And Daniel, sitting near the pilot's chair, watched her silently. He knew the galaxy would not see her the way he did, but he also knew one truth. He had made the right choice. Together, they were no longer just a human wanderer and a forgotten slave. Together, they were something new. Two souls walking into an unknown future, with hope where none had been before. The freighter floated silently through deep space, its engines glowing faintly. Inside the cockpit, Daniel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, still thinking about what had happened during the pirate attack. He had flown through many dangerous encounters before, but he had never seen anything like what Lyra had done. She had sensed danger before it even appeared on the radar. It was not luck. It was not chance. It was something more. Lyra, sitting quietly beside him, stared at her hands. She could still feel the strange rush from earlier, the sharp pull in her mind when the pirates moved, the way her chest tightened just before their weapons fired. It frightened her almost as much as it amazed her. Daniel broke the silence. "Lyra, you saved both of us, you need to know that." She shook her head. "I only guessed." He smiled slightly. "You don't guess 5 times in a row. That was no guess, it was something inside you." Her lips pressed together, unsure if she wanted to accept his words. "If it was inside me, why did no one else ever see it?" "Because no one bothered to look," Daniel replied firmly. The next day, the freighter landed on a small frontier outpost. The station was rough and noisy, filled with miners, traders, and mercenaries. Daniel needed parts for the ship, so they stepped out together. The air smelled of smoke and oil. Lyra kept close to him, her eyes darting nervously at the crowds. Whispers followed her as they often did. Some recognized her race, some only saw her ragged clothing, and many sneered. "Worthless," one alien muttered. "Why waste credits on her?" Another laughed. Lyra lowered her head, shame biting at her heart. But Daniel kept walking, calm and steady, ignoring them. They entered a parts shop where rows of metal pieces lined the shelves. The merchant, a bulky reptilian creature, studied them. "What do you need, human?" "Fuel stabilizers," Daniel answered. "2 of them." As the merchant fetched the items, Daniel turned to Lyra. "See anything unusual?" he asked softly. She frowned. "Unusual? You felt something before. Try again. Don't be afraid." Lyra hesitated, then let her eyes drift over the room. At first, she felt nothing but the hum of machines. But then, a strange vibration in her chest, a pull toward the corner of the shop. She walked slowly and stopped before a crate. "This," she whispered. Daniel came over, curious. He opened the crate and frowned. Inside was a small beacon device, the kind smugglers use to track ships. It was hidden under spare parts. He gave a low whistle. "You're right. Someone's been planning to mark buyers and follow them later. If we'd taken this by mistake, pirates would have hunted us again." Lyra's eyes widened. I didn't know. I just felt something wrong." Daniel looked at her with deep respect. "That's no accident, Lyra. You're more than you think." Word spread quickly across the outpost. Rumors flowed through the crowded halls. The worthless Zalari girl had uncovered a smuggler's trick. Some laughed, saying it was only luck. Others grew curious. And a few began to whisper that perhaps she was not as useless as everyone believed. But with curiosity came danger. By nightfall, a group of mercenaries approached Daniel's ship. Their leader, tall and scarred, stood at the ramp. "We've heard about your girl," he sneered. "If she has special senses, she belongs to us now. Hand her over and maybe we'll let you keep your ship." Daniel stepped forward, his eyes cold. "She doesn't belong to anyone, least of all you." The mercenaries laughed, weapons gleaming in the dim light. "Then you'll regret your choice, human." Before they could attack, Lyra stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to speak. "You think I'm worthless. That's what everyone has said. But if I am, why do you want me so badly?" The leader snarled, caught off guard by her defiance. Daniel grinned faintly. "Good question. Then, faster than the mercenaries expected, he pulled his blaster and fired a warning shot at their feet. The men stumbled back. "This ship is protected," Daniel said firmly. "Try again, and you'll see how much." The mercenaries cursed, but retreated, muttering threats as they disappeared into the crowd. Lyra's hands shook, but she stood taller than before. She had spoken, not hidden. For the first time, she had stood against those who wished to take her. Later, inside the ship, Daniel patched a dented panel while Lyra sat nearby. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Why do they fear me now? They never feared me before." Daniel looked at her. "Because they finally see something they can't control. That scares them more than anything." She thought about that long into the night. Perhaps she was more than a shadow of her broken people. Perhaps she had something even her enemies could not understand. The journey continued, but Lyra began to change. She practiced sensing the flow of space, testing herself with small tasks. Sometimes she could feel the pulse of nearby ships before the sensors detected them. Sometimes she could almost hear the hum of machines in ways Daniel could not. One evening, Daniel handed her the controls. "Try flying," he said, her eyes widened. "I can't." "You can," he insisted. "Just trust yourself." With trembling hands, she guided the freighter forward. At first it was clumsy, the ship jerking unevenly. But then, as she focused, she felt the rhythm of the engines, the subtle balance of movement. She adjusted with instinct more than skill, and the ship steadied. Daniel smiled. "See? You're learning." Lyra's heart raced, not with fear this time, but with pride. But not all were pleased with her growth. Unknown to them, whispers about Lyra's ability had reached powerful ears. The alien empire that had once called her race worthless began to take notice. Reports spread, a Zalari woman with strange senses, traveling with a human. Some dismissed it as rumor, but others decided to watch. Far away, a council of merchants and rulers spoke quietly. "If it is true," one said, "then the Zalari bloodline is not as weak as we believed. We cannot let this girl live free. She must be taken, studied, or destroyed." And so unseen ships began to move, hunting for the freighter and the girl, who was no longer worthless. Inside the freighter, Lyra gazed at the stars. Her voice was soft as she spoke to Daniel. "Do you really believe I have worth?" Daniel met her eyes without hesitation. "I don't just believe it, Lyra. I know it." Her heart warmed at his words. She no longer felt like a shadow. She felt alive, needed and stronger than she had ever dared to dream. But neither of them knew that the galaxy itself was beginning to see her too. Some with fear, some with greed, and some with the desire to silence her forever. The days ahead would not be easy. But for the first time, Lyra was ready to face them. She was not worthless. She was something far more powerful. And Daniel, the human who had chosen her when no one else would, was determined to prove it to the entire universe. The stars burned quietly outside the freighter's windows, but inside the air was heavy with tension. Daniel sat at the cockpit, hands resting on the worn controls, his eyes sharp as he scanned the radar. For days, he had felt something was wrong, small traces on their trail, faint signals too clean to belong to random travelers. Lyra stood behind him, her hands tightening on the edge of the chair. She too felt it, that strange pressure in her chest that always warned her of danger. It came stronger now, like a storm waiting beyond the horizon. "They're following us," she whispered. Daniel nodded grimly. "I know." By evening, the truth revealed itself. A large vessel appeared on the radar, its black hull painted with the mark of the Empire. The same Empire that had once called her people worthless. A cold voice came through the comms. "This is the Imperial Authority. You are harboring stolen property. Surrender the Zalari female immediately and you may live." Lyra's breath caught. Her knees weakened, memories of auctions and chains crashing back. But before fear consumed her, Daniel's voice cut through the air. "She's not your property," he said firmly. "She's under my protection, and I don't hand people over to tyrants." The comms went silent for a moment, then laughter echoed back. A human defying the Empire? Foolish. Prepare to be boarded. The freighter shook as the enemy ship fired a warning shot. Daniel's fingers flew over the controls, spinning the freighter into a sudden dive. Lyra gripped the seat, fear mixing with the strange sense inside her. "They're going to fire again, right side," she cried. Daniel pulled the ship hard to the left, and a blast streaked past them, missing by meters. He glanced at her, half smiling despite the danger. "Keep telling me what you feel. It's the only way we get through this." The chase dragged on through a field of asteroids. Daniel weaved between the giant rocks while Lyra warned him of every incoming strike. The Empire ship was larger, stronger, but their freighter was smaller and more agile. For a while, it was enough. But then the Empire ship released hunters. Smaller, crafts designed to trap fleeing prey. "They're surrounding us," Daniel muttered. Lyra's chest tightened. She closed her eyes, focusing. She could feel the hunters moving like ripples across water. Her hands pointed without thinking. One above, two behind. The last one is coming from below. Daniel trusted her completely. He spun, fired, and dodged. Explosions lit the void as one hunter after another fell, but even victory came with a cost. The freighter shuddered, alarms blaring, smoke filling the cockpit. "We're hit," Daniel said through gritted teeth. "Engines are failing." They crash-landed on a desolate moon, the ship grinding into the dirt until it stopped with a heavy groan. Sparks flickered across the walls, but at least they were alive. Lyra staggered to her feet, her body aching. Daniel was already checking the systems. "We can fix her, but it'll take time," he muttered. They didn't have time. Even now, the Empire ship hovered above the moon like a predator waiting to strike. "They'll send soldiers," Lyra whispered. Daniel handed her a small tool. "Then we'll make them regret it. Come on." The soldiers arrived in armored carriers, their boots crunching across the dusty surface. They moved in tight formation, their weapons gleaming under the pale light. Daniel crouched behind a broken ridge with Lyra. His blaster was ready, but he looked at her first. "You don't have to fight if you're not ready." She shook her head. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I've run long enough. If I am truly worthless, then let me prove it here. If I have worth, let me fight beside you." Daniel gave her a small nod. "Then we fight together." The battle began with fire raining across the ridge. Daniel fired back, striking down soldiers with sharp precision. Lyra felt the rhythm of the enemy, the way their formation moved. She called out warnings, guiding Daniel's aim. "Left side, now. Two coming from the rocks. Wait, behind. You." Daniel trusted every word, moving like a soldier with a second mind. And soon even Lyra herself moved differently. She picked up a fallen weapon, her hands trembling. Yet when the moment came, her instincts guided her. A shot fired true, saving Daniel from a soldier creeping behind. The Empire soldiers faltered. The girl they had called worthless was leading the fight. When the dust cleared, only a handful of soldiers fled back to their ship. Daniel and Lyra stood side by side, their breaths heavy, their bodies aching but alive. Daniel looked at her, his voice low. "You just saved both of us again. You're no slave, Lyra. You're worth more than all the gold in their empire." Her chest swelled with pride and disbelief. She had not hidden. She had not broken. She had fought. And she had won. But their victory carried a shadow. The Empire would not stop. Already their ship above prepared for another strike. Daniel worked quickly on the freighter, repairing what he could. Lyra helped, her hands steady despite fear. At last, the engines roared back to life. Daniel grinned at her. "Ready to leave?" She nodded, her eyes shining. "Ready." The freighter blasted off the moon, dodging fire as it climbed toward the stars. Lyra felt the pull of danger again and shouted warnings. Daniel flew with everything he had. Together, they pierced through the enemy's line, vanishing into the safety of hyperspace. Silence filled the ship once more. Daniel leaned back, sweat dripping down his forehead. We made it, he whispered. Lyra sat beside him, her hands trembling but her eyes bright. She had been sold for nothing, mocked, and hunted. Yet here she was, alive, free, and stronger than she had ever imagined. She turned to Daniel. Do you still believe I have worth? He met her gaze, his voice steady. More than anyone else I've ever met. Her heart warmed at his words, and for the first time, she truly believed them. But deep inside, both knew the Empire would come again, and next time it would be more than soldiers. Next time the galaxy itself would learn just how wrong they had been about the girl they had called worthless. The freighter glided through hyperspace, its engines humming softly. Daniel sat at the cockpit, his eyes fixed on the swirling blue streaks outside. His body still ached from the battle, but his mind was sharp, already planning what came next. He knew the Empire would not give up so easily. They had seen Lyra's gift, and to them her existence was dangerous. Behind him, Lyra sat quietly. Her fingers brushed the edge of the seat, her thoughts heavy. She had fought, spoken, and survived, but the fear of being hunted still lingered. She turned her gaze to the stars, whispering to herself, "Am I truly free? Or just waiting to be captured?" Again, Daniel's voice broke her thoughts. "We can't keep running forever," he said. "Sooner or later they'll find us, but if they come again, we'll be ready." Lyra looked at him, her eyes uncertain. "Ready? Against the Empire? They have fleets, armies, and we have one broken ship." Daniel smiled faintly. "Sometimes one ship is enough, if the people inside it don't give up." Their next stop was a free colony, hidden in the belt of a giant gas planet. The colony was a place of refuge for those who had escaped the Empire's grasp: traitors, rebels, and survivors. When Daniel landed the freighter, the colony's guards scanned it quickly before waving them in. Inside the colony, voices filled the air along with the smell of food and oil. Daniel walked beside Lyra as people stared. Whispers spread quickly. Some recognized her face, remembering the stories of the girl who had been sold for nothing and yet had fought Empire soldiers. "She's the Zalari girl. The one who destroyed the hunters. They say she has a gift." Lyra's cheeks burned. The words no longer mocked her, but they still felt heavy. Daniel, however, walked calmly, ignoring the stares. He led her to a small hall where leaders of the colony met. A tall woman with gray hair and stern eyes greeted them. "You're the human who defied the Empire," she said. "And this is the girl they hunt." Daniel nodded. "Her name is Lyra, and she's not what the Empire says she is. She's not worthless. She's proof they were wrong." The leader studied Lyra carefully. "Is it true you can sense danger before it happens?" Lyra shifted nervously. I don't know how, but yes, I feel it like ripples in the air." The leader's eyes softened. "Then you are not worthless. You may be what this galaxy needs." The colony gave them shelter, but safety was short-lived. Within days, an Empire fleet appeared in the system. Their ships darkened the skies, their voices demanding surrender. "This is the Empire," the broadcast thundered. "Hand over the Zalari female, or this colony will be destroyed." Fear spread through the halls. Many argued to give Lyra up, to save themselves. "She's not worth all our lives," someone shouted. Lyra's chest tightened. The words stabbed her like old wounds. She wanted to shrink, to disappear. But then she felt Daniel's hand on her shoulder. His voice was steady, calm, yet filled with fire. "She is worth more than all of us," he said firmly. "Because if we give her up, we prove the Empire is right, that they can decide who matters and who doesn't. If we stand with her, we show them the truth, that no one is worthless." His words carried through the crowd, quieting the room. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the leader stepped forward. "We will not surrender her. If the Empire wants a fight, they will have one." The battle came swiftly. Empire ships rained, fire across the colony's defenses shaking the ground. Daniel rushed to his freighter, Lyra close beside him. "We can't win in numbers," he said, "but maybe we can outthink them." Lyra closed her eyes, focusing. The storm inside her, chest burned brighter than ever. She could feel the enemy ships, their movements, their attacks before they happened. She spoke quickly, her voice clear. 2 ships coming from above. Dive now. Their flank is weak on the left. Strike there. Wait. Don't fire. Yet. They're setting a trap. Turn. Daniel followed every word, flying with unmatched precision. The freighter darted through enemy lines, its small size and Lyra's gift giving them an edge. They destroyed one ship after another, forcing the Empire to stumble. But the enemy flagship remained, massive and dark, its guns ready to tear the colony apart. Lyra's heart pounded. She could feel its power, its hunger to crush her. Fear clawed at her chest, but Daniel's voice steadied her. Lyra, you've led us this far. What do you see now? She shut her eyes, searching within. Then, like a light cutting through fog, she felt it, the weak point in the flagship's heart. There, she whispered, pointing. Near the center. Strike there and it will fall. Daniel nodded without hesitation. He dove straight into the storm of enemy fire, trusting her completely. Lyra guided him with every breath, every instinct. Blasts scorched the freighter's wings, alarms screamed, but they pressed forward. At the perfect moment, Daniel fired. The shot streaked true, piercing the flagship's weak point. A great explosion lit the skies as the Empire's mighty vessel shattered into flames. The fleet, stunned and leaderless, fled into the void. Silence followed. The colony cheered, voices rising in joy and disbelief. The girl once sold for nothing had helped destroy the Empire's strongest ship. Lyra sat in the cockpit, her chest heaving, tears in her eyes. Not tears of shame, but of pride. She turned to Daniel, whispering, I was truly worth something. Daniel smiled, his voice warm. You were never worthless, Lyra. You were always worth everything. The Empire just didn't want to see it. Days later, the colony celebrated their freedom. Songs filled the air, lights glowing across the halls. Lyra stood among them, no longer a shadow, no longer afraid. For the first time in her life, she was seen, not as a burden, not as a slave, but as a person of worth. The leader of the colony raised her hand. This girl has reminded us of what we forgot, that every life has value. She has shown us courage, and because of her, we still stand free. The people cheered, their voices echoing through the halls. Lyra lowered her head, overwhelmed, but Daniel's hand on her shoulder kept her steady. You did this, he whispered. No, she said softly. We did this. Together. That night, as stars stretched endlessly above, Lyra and Daniel stood at the freighter's ramp. Where will we go now? She asked. Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. Anywhere we want. The galaxy is wide, and you're no longer bound by chains. You get to choose. She smiled, a smile full of strength. Then I choose to walk beside you? Daniel nodded, his heart warmed. Then let's begin again. The freighter rose into the skies, carrying them toward new horizons. The Empire had called her worthless, had tried to silence her, but she had proven them wrong. With Daniel at her side, she was no longer sold for nothing. She was priceless. And as the stars opened before them, Lyra finally believed in her true worth.